My perfect sister set her wedding on the same day as mine on purpose. As expected, our parents chose to attend her ceremony. So finally I cut them off. My sister Vanessa just booked her wedding for the exact same day as mine. The words hung in the air of my parents' dining room like smoke after a fire. I watched Dad's fork pause midway to his mouth, saw Mom's eyes light up with that familiar spark, the one reserved only for Vanessa's grand gestures. Oh, how wonderful! Mom clapped her hands together. A double celebration. The candles flickered between us, casting shadows that danced across Vanessa's perfect smile. She sat across from me, her blonde hair catching the light like a crown, her manicured fingers drumming against the mahogany table. She knew exactly what she was doing. You don't mind, do you, Allison? Her voice dripped with false sweetness, the kind that could rot teeth. I kept my hands steady, wrapping them around my water glass. The condensation was cold against my palms. Of course not, I said quietly. Dad cleared his throat. Vanessa's venue is the Grand Metropole downtown. Where's yours again, Allison? The Ashford Hotel, I replied. Also downtown. Oh. Mom's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. Well, Vanessa's is much larger. Everyone will want to be there, naturally. Naturally. That word had followed me my entire life. Vanessa naturally got the lead in the school play. Vanessa naturally deserved the newer car. Vanessa naturally came first. But what they didn't see, sitting there in their certainty, was the leather planner already open in my bag. Inside, lists waited, meticulously organized, color-coded, prepared. They mistook my silence for acceptance. They always had. I learned silence early. I was 7 when Vanessa, then 10, stood on our front porch in a pale blue dress while Mom adjusted her hair for a catalog photo shoot. Tilt your chin up, sweetheart, Mom cooed, her voice warm as summer honey. Behind them, I clutched my lunchbox, the one I'd packed myself because everyone had forgotten breakfast. I waited for someone to notice. No one did. At school, I discovered that grades could buy me attention. When I brought home a spelling test marked 100, Dad glanced up from his newspaper for exactly 3 seconds. Don't make Vanessa feel bad about her grades, he said flatly. I folded that test carefully, creasing it along the edges, and tucked it into my desk drawer. It became a habit, folding away proof that I existed, that I tried, that I mattered. Vanessa was always golden. When she failed algebra, Mom blamed the teacher for not explaining properly. When I aced chemistry, the achievement vanished into silence. On my 13th birthday, the cake arrived with both our names on it. We thought it would be fun to celebrate together, Mom explained. Vanessa's recital is next week, and this way we can combine things. Vanessa blew out every candle before I could take a breath. I learned to clap for her victories, even when each one felt like sandpaper against my skin. Dad worked long hours at Midwestern Insurance, coming home smelling like stale coffee and stress. I made myself useful, washing dishes without being asked, sorting mail, keeping the house running smoothly in the quiet spaces between his exhaustion and Mom's devotion to Vanessa. You're dependable, he said once, not looking up from his laptop. It never sounded like love. In high school, I developed a crush on Daniel Warren for my calculus class. He had dark curly hair and always explained equations in ways that made sense. One night, while braiding Vanessa's hair before her dance, I mentioned him. Just once. She smiled at herself in the mirror, her reflection beautiful and cruel. The next week, she went out with him. When I locked myself in my room and cried into my pillow, Mom knocked once and said through the door, "Don't be dramatic, Allison. Daniel just prefers girls who are more outgoing." That night, I stopped sharing anything I cared about. The door to my inner world closed, and I became an expert at keeping it locked. College wasn't an option for me. Vanessa needs the tuition more, Dad announced at dinner when I was 17. She's got real potential. You're smart, you'll figure something out. So I did. Right after graduation, I got a job at Hamilton and Associates, typing legal documents in a gray cubicle under fluorescent lights. My high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, helped me apply. You're brilliant, Allison, she said, her eyes sad behind her glasses. Don't let them convince you otherwise. I thanked her, but part of me wondered if small and invisible wasn't safer. At least it hurt less. I moved out at 22 into a studio apartment in Philadelphia's Northern District. White walls. A clock that ticked steadily. Shelves I organized with labeled boxes, bills, receipts, work documents, everything in its place. Order was comfort. Routine was armor. Every morning, I woke at 6, made black coffee, and reviewed my planner. Every entry was handwritten. I didn't trust memory. It was too easy for people to rewrite, to gaslight, to pretend things hadn't happened the way I knew they had. Vanessa called sometimes, never to ask about me, always to broadcast her life. I just got promoted at the gallery, she'd say. And guess what? I have 3,000 followers now. Mom says you should try harder with your social media. Mom would echo it later, Vanessa's doing so well. You could learn from her, Allison. I nodded, as always. Silence kept the peace. But inside that silence, something was growing. A precision. A sharpness. I learned to wait, to listen, to notice what everyone overlooked. The folded papers of my childhood became the organized files of my adulthood, proof, stacked neatly, waiting. Silence wasn't peace, I realized. It was preparation. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. Rain drummed against my window as I updated wedding details in my planner, seating arrangements, catering confirmations, final head count. My phone screen lit up, Vanessa. I almost let it go to voicemail. Hey. Her voice was too bright, performatively casual. So, funny story. I just locked in my wedding date with the venue, and it turns out it's the same day as yours. The clock on my wall ticked. Once. Twice. The same day, I repeated, my voice neutral. I know, crazy coincidence, right? But you're doing something small anyway, aren't you? Just like, intimate family stuff. She laughed, light and dismissive. All our relatives will obviously come to mine. It just makes sense, ally. The Grand Metropole is gorgeous, and Nathan's family is huge. The silence stretched. Allison? You're okay with that, right? I stared at the circle in my planner marking my date, June 14th. The pen was still in my hand. I pressed the tip down until the ink bled through the paper. Yes, I said finally. I'm okay with it. When the call ended, I sat in the dark. The only sound was rain against glass and the distant hum of traffic below. My reflection in the window looked calm, almost serene, but my hands had gone ice cold. 20 minutes later, Mom called. Vanessa's venue is absolutely stunning, she gushed. The Grand Metropole. Can you imagine? Everyone will be there, all the relatives, your father's colleagues, everyone. You can do yours quietly, right? Maybe after hers ends, you could have a little dinner or something. Dad's voice rumbled in the background. Be supportive, Allison. It's your sister's big day. Of course, I said. Those same 2 words I'd used my entire life. After I hung up, I opened my planner to a fresh page. 2 dates circled in red ink, identical, June 14th. Next to mine, I wrote 3 words in neat block letters, confirmed. Do not move. They called it coincidence. They assumed I'd surrender. But they'd spent 28 years teaching me to be invisible, to stay small, to live in shadows. This time, I would stay exactly where I was, standing directly in the light they assumed belonged only to her. The morning after that call, I woke before sunrise. My apartment was gray with pre-dawn light, the city below still sleeping. I made coffee, watched steam fog the window, and opened my planner to the word confirmed. The ink had dried perfectly smooth. At 8 o'clock sharp, I walked into the offices of Hamilton and Associates. I'd worked there for 6 years, long enough to understand how things worked, how to make things happen without anyone noticing the architect behind them. While my co-workers discussed their weekend plans, I opened the company's internal portal and began drafting an email. Subject: Invitation, the Barrett Cooper Wedding. Formal attendance requested from senior staff and partners. I didn't send it. Not yet. I saved it as a draft, cursor blinking like a countdown. By noon, I was on the phone with Sandra Chen at Premier Events. Yes, I'd like to confirm our date, I said. June 14th. Ms. Barrett, I have to ask, I see there's another wedding booked here that day. The Grand Metropole is in the same building complex. Is there any conflict we should know about? No conflict, I said smoothly. But I'll need to upgrade to the crystal ballroom instead of the rose room. That's significantly larger.
I'm aware.
Can you accommodate? Of course, Ms. Barrett. That evening, I told Cameron, my fiancé, about the call with Vanessa. He was quiet for a long time, his engineering mind processing. Finally, you're really not changing the date? No. He nodded slowly. Then we do this right. Proper guest list. Proper everything. I smiled faintly.
Proper silença.
The following week unfolded like precision machinery. Each day, another piece clicked into place. Click, the sound of my keyboard finalizing the company email. Swipe, my pen marking confirmed RSVPs from partners and senior associates. Print, the stack of cream-colored invitations sealed with silver wax. Check, payments processed for upgraded catering, live jazz quartet, professional photography. Every task felt surgical. The rhythm was steady and cold. Silence, I understood now, wasn't absence. It was control. Mom called midweek. Vanessa's reception is going to be beautiful. You'll help her set up that morning, won't you? She's so nervous. I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen, seating charts, vendor contracts, timeline breakdowns. I'll be busy that day. Busy? But it's her wedding. Yes, I said softly. It is. She didn't hear the shift in my voice. She never did. At night, I spread everything across my dining table. Cameron sat across from me, reviewing details with the same focus he brought to structural engineering problems. You sure this isn't too much? He asked once. Not enough, I replied. He smiled, slow and proud. Then let's make it perfect. We visited the Ashford Hotel together the following week. The crystal ballroom stretched before us, all soaring ceilings and Art Deco chandeliers that scattered light like diamonds. It's stunning, I told the events manager. But keep it understated. Elegant, not excessive. Of course, Ms. Barrett. I ran my hand along the ivory drapes, thick and soft.
No perdone de querascens.
I want people to notice the architecture, to hear the silence between the music. The staff looked confused. Cameron didn't. He understood. Each night, I recorded details in my planner. Final guest count, 147. Seating for Gregory Cooper, Cameron's father and the senior partner at Hamilton and Associates, front row center. I adjusted parking arrangements for the firm's partners, coordinated with the jazz ensemble from the firm's annual charity gala, confirmed everything twice. Every name I added made Vanessa's guest list thinner by default. She and Nathan had chosen the Grand Metropole, same building complex, different ballroom, same floor. She'd thought the proximity would humiliate me, would force me to hear her celebration while mine withered in comparison. When the final confirmation email went out from Hamilton's HR department, attendance strongly encouraged for all senior staff and partners, I read it 3 times, then archived it carefully. That weekend, cleaning my closet, I found an old shoebox. Inside, beneath expired warranties and forgotten birthday cards, was the spelling test from 3rd grade. The one with 100 written in red marker. Still folded, still hidden. I unfolded it carefully and laid it flat on my dining table. Next to it, I placed my current wedding binder, printed schedules, confirmed vendors, guest lists organized by table. Same shape. Same careful organization. Different meaning. Cameron came in and paused. What's that? A reminder, I said. He looked at the old test, then at me. You're incredibly calm. I learned from the best. Your family. No, I said quietly. They're mistakes. The morning of June 14th arrived with unusual weight to the air, thick and charged, the feeling before a thunderstorm breaks. I woke at dawn, the city still quiet below my window. I arrived at the Ashford Hotel early, my gown's hem whispering against marble floors. Staff rushed past with flower arrangements and champagne flutes. 2 signs stood at the entrance.
Crystal Ballroom, Barrett Cooper Wedding. Grand Métropole Suite, Vanessa et Nathan.
Same day. Same building. 2 versions of truth. Our ceremony began at noon. Guests filed in, Cameron's colleagues, senior partners from the firm, my carefully curated list of people who mattered in my actual life, not the life my parents had imagined for me. The room filled. Gregory Cooper sat in the front row, his presence commanding even in silence. The crystal chandeliers caught afternoon light, scattering it across upturned faces. When the string quartet began playing, the sound vibrated through the floor like a heartbeat. Upstairs, according to the hotel coordinator I'd quietly befriended, a different scene was unfolding. Half the expected guests didn't show, she whispered during a final walkthrough. Something about a firm event they couldn't miss. By the time Cameron and I exchanged vows, the Grand Metropole suite was reportedly 3/4 empty. I do, I said, my voice steady. The applause was soft but full, earned, not expected. Through the tall windows, I caught a glimpse of Vanessa in the courtyard below. Her gown was magnificent, her face a mask of confusion. Nathan paced beside her, phone pressed to his ear, his expression frantic. 30 minutes into our reception, they appeared. I saw them before anyone else did, Mom, Dad, Vanessa and Nathan, all dressed for the wrong room. Their faces shifted when they took in the scene, the crowd, the partners from Hamilton and Associates, the Cameron family gathered like a constellation of legal power and old Philadelphia money. Vanessa's voice cut through the music. What? Why is everyone here? These are supposed to be at my wedding. Nathan's voice cracked. These are my father's colleagues. Why are they here? Gregory Cooper stood, his presence quiet but absolute. Strange, isn't it? He said, his voice carrying easily. 2 weddings, 1 date. But only one of them is my son's. The microphone on the small stage caught his words, carrying them across the ballroom. Silence spread like frost. Mom's smile crumbled. Dad tried to recover. We didn't realize. You didn't have to realize, Gregory said mildly. Some people only understand order when it stops including them. Vanessa grabbed Nathan's arm. Say something. He stepped back, his collar suddenly too tight. You told me this date would humiliate her. You promised me she'd look pathetic. You agreed to it, Vanessa hissed. Their argument spilled out, raw and ugly. Guests exchanged glances. A photographer's flash went off. I stood by my table, champagne glass in hand, the same posture I'd held at the dinner where this began. My planner sat beside the guest book, closed and complete. Gregory spoke again, softer now. Let's keep this day for the people who earned it. At his subtle signal, hotel staff guided my family out, calmly, professionally, the way you remove a disruption from a space meant for celebration. As the doors closed behind them, the quartet resumed playing. ACT 7, the morning after. The next morning arrived washed clean. Pale gold light poured through my apartment windows, the streets below still damp from overnight rain. I stood in the kitchen barefoot, stirring sugar into coffee. The spoon clinked softly against porcelain, steady, measured, mine. Cameron was still asleep, his breathing even and peaceful. On the dining table lay my planner, finally closed. Beside it, our marriage certificate rested flat, catching morning light. The seal shimmered the same color as the ink I'd used months ago to circle that date. For 28 years, I'd folded proof of myself small enough to hide, test scores, achievements, moments of trying that no one acknowledged. Yesterday, I'd finally unfolded everything.
No confrontation. No screaming.
Just a quiet line drawn through everything that used to hurt. I thought of Vanessa. Maybe she woke to silence too, empty texts, unanswered calls, the sound of her own reflection finally looking back honestly. Maybe my parents sat in their house trying to understand the moment the room stopped applauding for them. I didn't feel joy imagining it. Just distance. Clean, necessary distance. The kettle whistled softly. I turned it off before it grew loud. Cameron appeared, hair mussed, eyes half open. Morning. Morning. He leaned against the counter. You okay? I nodded. Yes. Finally. We didn't dissect the wedding. It had already done what it needed to, ended something old, began something quiet and true. When he left for work, the apartment settled into calm rhythm. I opened the window slightly. The air smelled like rain and fresh bread from the bakery downstairs. Somewhere distant, a train moved through the city, its horn low and fading. I sat at the table, opened my planner one last time, and drew a clean line under the final entry, Barrett Cooper wedding complete. Then I closed it and placed it beside the certificate. The light shifted across both papers, merging them into one soft reflection. Silence, this time, didn't mean absence. It meant ownership. In families like mine, power doesn't shout. It withdraws. And when it does, the room finally learns what silence sounds like. It isn't empty. It's earned. It's the sound of boundaries settling into place, of peace finding its own volume after years of being spoken over. Some stories don't end with explosions. They end with doors closing quietly, with morning light on new papers, with coffee stirred slowly in kitchens that finally belong to you. This is what I learned. Revenge doesn't have to be loud to be complete. Sometimes the loudest justice is the sound of you, finally choosing yourself, and walking away from people who never learned to hear you in the first place. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of everything you stopped giving to people who never deserved it. And that fullness, that quiet, earned peace, is the only victory that ever really mattered.